Good afternoon. Everybody happy? Good times. Good afternoon. Welcome to the National Infrastructure and Growth Scrutiny Panel. Bit of admin. Before we start these proceedings, may I bring to your attention some housekeeping matters. There's no expected fire alarm testing today. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the signs to the nearest fire exit and meet at the fire assembly point in Civic Square. Can I ask you that obviously when you're speaking, just turn your microphone on and then off accordingly? Hope we don't want to hear any mobile devices going off, so if you could turn them off or put them on silent, that would be great. This meeting will be broadcast live. It can be found on YouTube, so people will be able to watch it live, or they can play it back at their leisure. So be aware of the fact that we're going to be filmed. Cool. Any apologies, Jake?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor Goslin. Councillor Morton is substituting today.
Cool. Declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest in respect to the meeting today? Councillor Allen?
More a query, actually. I work for an education trade union, so I was wondering if perhaps I should actually be on the safe side and declare an interest.
Thank you, that's noted. And myself, it's on public record, but just because it will be mentioned today and we've got City College here today, my employment is with City College Plymouth. Minutes. Are we happy with the minutes from the last meeting? There you go, Jake. Happy days. I will sign that off. Chair's urgent business. I don't have any, apart from maybe everyone happy with the visit we had the other day to the dockyard, Devonport dockyard. Any comments on that? I think it went down really well presented and a real insight. So thank you for everyone that came along. We were on the fun bus. It was good times. So, what we're planning to do is we've given you a succinct report today, which I think is about the right length. It's a huge subject, skills. Obviously, we've added this meeting in as an additional, as a plank to everything we do as far as growth is concerned with our 5 pillars, which we're going to map out over the course of this cycle, and skills is a very important pillar, so I'm really happy we're going to be talking about it today. To make things, to be helpful, just to give you a little bit of a brief, we do have the report, but to shape it a little bit, it's just going to be in chunks. So the first, it's going to be in 4 sections. The first sort of segment will be the Cabinet member will say a few words. Then we'll have an overview and skills demand and growth alliance report, and they'll introduce themselves at the beginning. I'm hoping to keep these around half an hour-ish, just to give you some context. Me and Charlotte will obviously monitor how the meeting is going. The second item will be further education update and perspective. Again, people introduce themselves at the time. The third element is the connect to work. People will introduce themselves at the beginning. And the final element will be inclusive employment and education update. That should then cover that whole report, okay? So we're just trying to make things easier. So without further ado, we'll kick off with Councillor Sally Creswell, the Cabinet Member for Education, Skills and Apprenticeships. And she will just start proceedings for us, and then we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for that overview. That really clarifies things. So I have to say, first of all, I'm absolutely delighted to be here today with, I've got to say, all these fantastic partners from across the city to share with the scrutiny panel an update and the progress made on our skills post-16 and also with our education results. The session today consists of, as very helpfully the Chair has said, of 4 presentations. So the first will be on the skills needed in our city to meet the opportunity presented by defence investment. Following that, we will hear an update on further education in the city and then on to the new Contact to Work programme, Connect to Work programme. The fourth and final will be on inclusive employment and an update on the latest education results. So the session today will reference with the accompanying paper that you've already received. And at the end of each presentation, which I think is really important, there'll be plenty of opportunity to ask questions on each area. And I think that's really vital and really important for the committee. I'd like particularly to thank Paul Fanshawe from City College, Victoria Cope from Babcock for attending, as well as all the others who are actually attending today. And so we'll proceed on and I'll do a brief introduction to our very first presentation. So the first one is going to be on the overview of skills demand and the Growth Alliance Plymouth. So in the first section, we're going to cover the emerging skills demand and the significant investment in defence that will lead to, I have to say, incredible opportunities in the city. And I will hand across to Victoria from Babcock, who will introduce the Growth Alliance Plymouth, a recent partnership which has been established between Plymouth City Council, Babcock, and of course the Ministry of Defence. And then Toby is going to complete this session with what this means for Plymouth and the next steps. And then we'll hand back to you, Chair, Councillor Ricketts, so that you can take the necessary questions. So, Chair, if you're happy, I'm going to hand across to Victoria and Toby.
Thank you. If you want to take us away, Toby and Victoria, that would be great.
Great. Thank you very much for having us here today. So by way of introductions, I am Victoria Cope. I am the Programme Manager for the Growth Alliance programme. I'm a Babcock employee embedded into Plymouth City Council, working as part of the tripartite that has been pulled together to deliver the opportunity for the Growth Alliance. We will be transitioning following Monday's exciting announcement in the Defence Industrial Strategy to Team Plymouth following the launch event we have planned on the 19th. With me today and sat at the back and not speaking is Karen Dalton-Fife, and she at the end of this section is also here to support any questions, and she is the leader from the partnership lead from our Ministry of Defence element of the partnership. So, thank you.
Guys, I am conscious of your microphones. I don't know how much is getting picked up. I'm just seeing it from afar. I don't want people watching not to hear you. So just trying to be helpful.
Okay, thank you. So the Growth Alliance was created to ensure, as a TriLat, after years of working together, following the MOD announcement of a commitment of significant spend in the dockyard. This was pulled together to retain a balanced city. 4.4 billion is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the city and the wider region from defence investment to do something differently to change how we can grow and adapt the city. And this is to ensure, this was pulled together to ensure that we didn't have an impact on the city by the defence investment. So previously, in the years of all working together, the dockyard has seen this ebb and flow of growth and decay, well, not decay, but drops. And this was really pulled together to ensure that with the long-term committed programme, that growth actually provided sustainable growth for the city and wider region, with the Defence Industrial Strategy at the forefront. We've aligned our aims and outcomes with the wider Plymouth economic strategy, so there is similarities across the piece. We believe that in establishing the evidence of the key impacts, we would have a greater impact on the wider business ecosystem, the economic impact, and the delivery to remove the existing barriers to growth in the area. I'm not going to read everything that's on the slides, by the way. So why is defence important to the city? So defence, as I just stated, has announced a 50-year programme. That's the first time that we have seen a very long-term commitment for defence for the dockyard, for contracting, for work. But that 50-year programme means that the people that are needed to support that defence output in the area aren't even born yet, or they're currently in primary schools. So in order to ensure that we fill that demand across defence, we need to be looking right now at the whole ecosystem. To put it into a bit more context for you, every submarine that defence builds is built in Barrow, but then it needs to be maintained. It needs to be maintained every 8 to 10 years for the entirety of its life. The dockyard here in Plymouth is the current only place that has the deep water capacity to do that maintenance period of the submarines. So it is critical as part of the national defence endeavour and the continuous at-sea deterrent programme that Devonport and Defence has the skills and the wider ecosystem it needs to deliver the defence outputs. You will have, hopefully you have all seen the defence review, and all of our assumptions on this to date has been around how defence is looking to double and further increase the demand of the dockyard in the future. But there are things around the dockyard, and starting with the evidence base has been really important to Team Plymouth. So we have got a large evidence base around the barriers to that attainment and the barriers to growth. And that's how we've started to deliver this programme and pull it together. Oh, sorry. So just to finalise, we are at a juncture of a once-in-a-generational opportunity where we know we have a major skills requirement. Just from Babcock as an organisation ourselves, we need 5,500 people over the next 10 years. That is just to stand still. That doesn't even include the additional growth requirements that will come from the doubling of the defence through the Strategic Defence Review, or some of the other contracts that are currently in negotiation. That is the firmed commitment that is under contract. Those figures are pulled from. The 4.4 billion investment is around improving, for those of you that visited the dockyard, you would have seen the massive infrastructure activities for the actual docks themselves. And the 4.4 billion investment is around doing that. Well, that then leads into the fact that we will absolutely need additional skills for construction and the support to the construction workforce. So that's another key area that I'm just pulling out from the slides for you. So to finish, we're really excited of this once-in-a-generation opportunity. Team Plymouth is at the forefront. We've secured the ability to get after some of the funding of the 250 million announced by the Defence Industrial Strategy for growth, and we pulled a programme together across the partnerships, including wider key partners of City College, the university. So it's more than just the original Growth Alliance Plymouth Trilat. This is really key across the area, that we are pulling together a programme to actually be able to not only get the funding from the government to drive this inclusive growth, but to also ensure that we have the right skills for the defence output moving forward to the future.
Thank you, Vicky. So just to introduce myself, I'm Toby Hall. I'm the Funding and Partnerships Manager in the Skills and Post-16 team and in the Council. So I've been working closely with Growth Alliance Plymouth as part of that, really thinking about how all of this this investment will impact our residents and obviously the skills demand. And this is probably a graph that many of you will have seen before. And this sort of illustrates the macro, the overarching position that we're facing. So, what you can see is that blue line, dotted line at the top is overall jobs needed in our economy, as a result of this investment, but also as the growth that we've seen. And the bottom black line is the current working age population who are economically active in our city, and this is projected based on ONS projections. So obviously you can see this growing gap, and the figure many of you will have heard is up to 25,000 additional workers needed in the next decade. So, you know, when we're thinking about all of this investment, this also relates to overall jobs in the defence sector and that supply chain, but it's also broader. It's across the whole city, and it really impacts every sector, and this growth will be felt in every sector. So just to sort of illustrate that further, what we've seen, and actually since the COVID pandemic, we've actually seen an increase in overall vacancies in our city anyway, you know, an indicator of growth. So on average, there are 2,500 job vacancies advertised per month, every month in Plymouth. And these are across a range of sectors. So you can see there over the last year, healthcare, hospitality, education, engineering. So all of these sectors are seeing growth, they're seeing demand for labour. And obviously this emerging defence investment, you know, is only going to grow that, is only going to grow the need for those particular skill sets and qualifications. And so just to come on to, so we have two slides, which is the aspirations and the commitments. So these have been developed under the skills workstream as part of Growth Alliance Plymouth. So firstly, this is the commitment. So what we've done here is articulated how we as the city, so both City Council and partners, will actually support ourselves, how we'll work towards these objectives ourselves. So I won't go through each one in detail, but you'll see that a lot of this is continuing and building on that joining up that we've already seen. So, you know, whether it's between schools and FE, HE, around a skills escalator, you know, supporting people into employment and then to upskill and reskill to continue progression in their career, or, you know, whether it's to join up with the business community as well. You know, examples there around Plymouth Manufacturers Group, Fast Cluster, Maritime UK, to understand that emerging demand and what their businesses are identifying as need. And then just one piece to draw your attention to as well is the third, which is around the commissioning of skills research. So this research is already underway. It was commissioned with Stantec earlier this year. We don't have a full report yet, but that piece is going to really drill into that broad graph I showed you earlier and unpick sort of some of the particular details, the particular skill sets that will be needed.
Thank you. All right.
Sorry, no, there's just the final one, but the final one is just around the aspirations. So again, I won't go through the whole list, but this is really some of the asks of government off the back. So, you know, we have commitments for us and partners as a city, but there are also a number of asks, lots of which we'll touch on. You know, partners in City College will touch around the Defence Technical Excellence College and others, but I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Smith?
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's all really exciting stuff, and we've kind of heard bits and pieces about how this funding is going to come through and how this is going to develop in the future. One thing in the industrial skills strategy that I read about was about the government setting up 5 defence technical colleges in the country, and presumably if we're talking about filling that skills gap, it's a no-brainer that we should be trying to get one of those here. So I don't know if there are any plans or anything to get that done.
Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, yes, there are plans, and I don't know if it's appropriate. Is it fair to bring Paul actually in on this? Yes, there are definitely plans.
Bring this a bit closer.
Paul, would you want to bring that in on your right?
Yeah, I've actually,
probably it might round it up
in a
better.
second, I'm actually covering that. There's a particular slide just on the detect, so I'll do that.
Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chair. Brilliant presentation. We're just having fantastic announcement after fantastic announcement for the city in this area, and to everybody here, so many of you who are contributing, just a big thank you. I know we sort of see it on the front pages, but there's a huge amount of work that goes into this, and I think a really great example of where we have local government, our partners in Babcock, MOD and national government working in step. So just a big thank you. This is all really big, and we should acknowledge that. So I had sort of a couple of questions. My first question is specifically on the Growth Alliance Plymouth, which has been sort of rebadged this week to Team Plymouth. Some people might not understand why the change in that, what the implications of that are. Can we understand that a bit more, given that's the key driving force? And obviously there's the tripartite, the sort of three main organisations, but can you build out a little bit more, because our growth story as a city will be so much more than just those three organisations. So how are you connecting in with that wider ecosystem? I know it was mentioned in passing on some of the slides, but can we just understand that a little bit more as the main vehicle? Thank you.
So I'll introduce Karen to answer from a mod perspective on the why we're restructuring to Team Plymouth, and then if needed I can add a bit more on the...
I'll move forward a little bit. So, hi everyone, I'm Karen Dalton-Fife. I work for the Ministry of Defence. I currently work for both Brigadier Tanner in the dockyard, and now I also work for Sir Chris Gardner as the Chief Exec of the SDA, who will be our SRO for Team Plymouth as we move forward. Growth Alliance Plymouth, as we all know, is very much about lobbying, understanding what the arguments were for Plymouth and how we could pull together a programme moving forward for investment into the city, so that the Navy did not unbalance the city moving forward across all of the work streams that you will have heard about. Why have we changed from GAP to Team Plymouth? Because it's bigger than just the three partners, and you've already raised that or highlighted that. It's more than that. Those are the key partners that will build potentially the executive board to move that forward, but the partnerships both locally and into the region are important. Some of the things that we're looking at doing, and we've already done as part of Growth Alliance Plymouth, is the sponsorship of skills at the higher level with City College, the university, Vice-Chancellor supporting us, and into all of those work streams there are partners that are mapped also into the Growth Board, so we're not trying to do something different. We're aligning ourselves, Growth Board, Team Plymouth, Growth Alliance Plymouth, working together as a city. Does that kind of make sense? There is also, as part of the Defence Industrial Strategy, 5 places that were announced. Plymouth is the only city that was announced, the other as a regions. We are the first because we are the most mature, and the reason we're most mature is because we had Growth Alliance Plymouth, which made it a reasonably easy step forward, but we have Team Barrow and there are potentially other teams across the country, and it's the model that actually the government like. So more inclusive, but also a higher level, not so much scrutiny, but a higher level support from government across a national voice into government from a Team Plymouth perspective, as opposed to a Growth Alliance. Does that kind of make sense? Any further follow-ups on that question?
It does make sense. We were having a discussion beforehand about names versus strategy, so it does help to understand that evolution, I guess, of where we've been and where we're going. In terms of where we're going then under this new Team Plymouth banner, I mean, what would you say, you know, great, we've had the presentation of what the priorities have been and where we've got to, but what are the sort of top things for those partners here that are driving the secretariat or the vehicle of Team Plymouth? What would you say are the sort of top immediate priorities that you're focused on? Now we've had these big wins. What happens now? Is it about delivery? Is it about asking for more? Like, what's immediately on your to-do list now you've got this done?
Well, as you can imagine, moving from lobbying to delivery and real partnership is actually establishing the governance framework, not only locally, but nationally, and understanding how we feed into government. That is going to be the priority. The next priority is understanding how we deliver that. You know, what government has done, or in fact the Ministry of Defence have done, is offered a sum of money to bid into. They've not physically given us that money, so we need to understand what our arguments are and what our achievable within 5 years aspirations are, tied to the policy levers and hooks that are in the Defence Industrial Strategy. And the hooks that are about marine autonomy and about skills, front and foremost. There's 250 million across 5 areas, but there are also other hooks into, and it's been mentioned by one of the other members here, but into the Defence Colleges of Excellence is a different bucket of money that we will pitch into. There is also further money within DSIT, so Defence Science, Innovation and Technology, where they have some money that we can potentially bid into locally in the marine autonomy and innovation space. So between now and April next year, when the money becomes available, we will have to look at what our priorities are for business cases. And that's our focus at the moment. Establishing the governance, funding the delivery platform that we will negotiate with our partners, both in government, across Plymouth City Council, Babcock and wider partners, about how we deliver this and the right way of doing it, and then pitch for the right amount of money, given the overall pot.
Chair shuffling around.
Yeah,
It's all good. So we have Councillor Morton.
Good afternoon. Is there any provision to improve civilian support services for the military, military communications and that kind of thing? Are we looking to improve employment in that sector at all, or improve the way that we communicate with each other from platform to platform? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get clear on the question. Are we talking about within the defence budget itself and the strategic defence review and how we deliver operations, or are we talking about Team Plymouth and local commitment to the local community?
So I worked for military communications all my adult life.
Yep.
I wondered if that was going to be improved within Dunbourt Dockyard.
I'm afraid I'm probably not the right person to ask this, and particularly as we're looking currently at skills and Team Plymouth, that would be probably something for the wider defence delivery areas and operations.
We could take that question away and come back.
All right, we'll get back to Councillor Morton after the meeting. Thank you. Councillor Rainsford.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. One's a longer one than the other. Thank you very much for the presentations. It's clear that nationally there's an awful lot of faith being put in Plymouth in terms of our ability as a team to deliver. Defence involves everything. It's incredibly complex. It's everything from sort of complex electronics, through graphics, through medics, through cleaning, through physicists. You know, there's a really broad range of employment skills behind the wall. And a lot of those skills are replicated and needed in the wider Plymouth economy amongst other businesses. Do we have any estimate of, as we grow inside the wall, what the level of growth is likely to be outside the wall? Are there any estimates on the job requirements?
Yeah, so at the moment, overall, so that modelling with the graph suggests that over the next 10 years, citywide growth will create this gap of 25,000 additional workers needed in the city, and that's a citywide estimate. Obviously, it's you know, it's catalysed by the investment, but that's citywide. And part of this research that I mentioned that's been happening over the summer has really been about unpicking more of the details. You know, you talk to lots of specific job roles, and we want to try to understand more detail to get down to that level as part of this research.
Perhaps, Chair, we could ask to have some of that data when it's known, because it'd be very interesting to see that.
Okay, we'll put that down as an action, Jake, okay? Thank you.
And if I could, a quick second question. The very last slide, Toby, that was up there included an ask of government on apprenticeships and skills levy, wanting a little bit more flexibility. Could you explain what that flexibility might look like, what it is you're actually looking for?
So what we're asking for is to become a pilot area for the apprenticeship levy. We know across the city there will be unspent levy. So how, instead of that returning to Treasury, how could we become a pilot area and use that for investment in skills?
Sounds like a very sensible ask.
To wrap this segment up, Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chair, and you've told me to keep it short. I wanted to follow up on partly on Alison's first question and the modelling, Toby, that you've done on future jobs growth and the jobs gap. Would love to see the data. How much have anticipated job evolution, changes through AI, automation, how much of those kind of technological changes that will come into effect over the course of your modelling, how much have they been factored into the estimates you've done there? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because I think we're lots of the investment. It's very long term and almost comes in waves. And what we know is that as contracts are won, particularly early on, lots of these are around construction, and it's around rebuilding the infrastructure behind the wall in the yard. So there's a little bit of us trying to anticipate what the longer term job roles will be once a lot of that work is done, and they're onto sort of the particular base porting activities. It has been one of the key questions asked in this commissioned piece to try to anticipate automation and AI and the changing nature of roles. And certainly it's something that, I'm sure Babcock think about when they're thinking about their recruitment going forward. So we don't have a sort of, it's certainly being considered, and it has been considered throughout. I think the initial graph is, I suppose, more of an overview, and we're hoping that this research done by Stantec will be able to unpick some of those particular questions like that. Yeah.
And also, as part of the partnership, we've also been working with the Freeport, who have commissioned a separate piece of research around the actual impact of marine autonomy and that sector on the city. So there's two sort of in parallel complementary pieces of research going on, so we can better understand that impact.
Thank you. And I think if we do find coming out of that there are certain jobs that exist now that don't exist in the future, that we need to think about how that workforce are looked after, and that people aren't, we have more winners, and that losers aren't losers. They're able to find other work through this evolution as well. But thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think that's concluded that sort of segment. Thank you, Toby and Victoria. Judy, are you burning to get in there?
Just a quick one, Chair. Jemima Lang was talking, Councillor Lang was talking yesterday about a project that we were aware of in Barrow with a King's funded work with a group of excluded young people, formerly known as NEETs. I know they're now called seats, I think, aren't they?
Seats, yes.
And we're having a look to see if that project is portable in terms of how it might be applied here. So it's really important, if we're going to talk about inclusion, that we try and get as many young people and as many people from Plymouth who are currently outside of the job market into the job market, and being able to participate and pick up these opportunities as they're created.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anything you want to finish off with, Sally? Quickly.
No, thank you. I'm ready to go on to the next section.
Well, thank you, Toby and Victoria, particularly. We'll move on to segment 2, further education update and perspective, and we have Paul Fanshawe and Lucinda Sanders. If you just want to say,
I'm going to do a brief introduction, if that's all right.
Okay. All right, cool.
All right.
Carry on. So,
and I can assure you that Councillor Smith, the DTEX will be something that we will be addressing in this next bit. So our next session provides a perspective from the further education providers, and includes how we're working together to address skills challenges at every level. Out of interest, I was at the jobs fair this morning, and there was Encore Southwest was there. It was hard to talk to them because there were so many people there making inquiries, but there were so many people who were actually there this morning. And one of the things that struck me is one of the statements there was, don't judge a book by its cover, and really saying how important it is for people to engage with various employers and such, and think about the wider perspective of what they might be offering. We sometimes, as we've been talking about skills here now, we aren't really necessarily, we've often say you can't be what you can't see, and sometimes until you actually probe, you don't realise what the opportunities are. But certainly this morning there were there were so many people who were actually interested and there and making inquiries, and a vast number of employers who were at Argyle. So we know that this skills challenge is at every level, and we know it'll be critical to ensure that local children, young people and our residents have the skills that they need now, and also those skills in the future to access these high-level jobs that we are talking about here today. So I've got Paul Fanshawe here from City College Plymouth, who's going to start this section with an update on the provision from one of the city's key anchor institutions, and an institution which we have been delighted to be working with so closely in partnership, which will also include an update on the very exciting green-blue skills centre, and also from Lucinda Sanders, who is from Encore Southwest, which is our in-house adult education provider, who will also provide an update on the skills delivery across the city. So, Chair, if you are happy to proceed, I'd like to pass over to both Paul and also then to Lucinda as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I like your style, Sally. Getting in there is good. I like it. It gives a bit more meat to the issue. So thank you. Yeah, if you can take us away, guys.
Thanks, Steve. Just to introduce myself then, I'm Paul Fanshawe. I'm the Executive for Business Intelligence, Growth and Skills at City College Plymouth. Very delighted to be here, and thank you for the invitation to talk about this today. So I thought I'd do three specific things if I can. One is to give you a brief overview in terms of the college, what we do, because in some ways a lot of the stuff we do goes unseen, and it's quite useful sometimes just to give it a little bit of an overview into what the college is and how we sit in the city currently. And then, as said, I'm going to go over two key projects, which is the Blue-Green Skills Hub in the heart of the city here, and then the DTEX, to answer the question from Councillor Smith earlier on. So as Councillor Creswell has advised, so the college is the kind of the anchor institution for skills in the city at the minute, and a nationally recognised one. So we've been very lucky over the last 3 to 4 years to be recognised at national level for being an outstanding provider, certainly the marine skills, and also more recently in digital, which has been something that we've been up against national competitors and universities, and it's been very good to see that recognised for the city in terms of those kind of that recognition. We train over 11,000 students a year on an annual basis. And there's some figures down there that you can see, which is about 3,500 16 to 18s. We're expecting that this year to grow to over 4,000 16 to 18s, and that'll be more than half of all of the 16 to 18-year-olds in the city doing post-16 education will come through the college on an annual basis. They will do all subjects, all categories and sectors across the city. There are around 1,600 apprentices, again, across all sectors, predominantly large numbers in engineering, construction and business, but an emerging sector of health where there's an increasing number of apprentices coming through that areas as well. 300 HE students. Some people don't realise that the college does everybody from pre-entry students who've got no education levels at all, where we get them and just introduce them to education, all the way through to now BSc level qualifications, and we're in, for example, cybersecurity, where we're delivering at the minute. So people can study with them. We do have students that come with us, and we'll go through that whole levels from pre-entry all the way through to HE. And I've been working at the college now for 20 years. And one of the things I love every year is I see students come back and see those journeys, and it's one of the most wonderful things you get actually in the education sector. You can see the personal development of the students coming through. We, as a college, we deliver about £42 million worth of education on an annual basis, predominantly 16 to 18, which is about £25 million of that. But then when you're putting into apprenticeships and adult skills and HE, that grows to around £42 million on an annual basis. And our achievement rates for a college are good. So they're all above the national averages. So we have some very, very high achievement rates. We have some achievement rates that are good, but everything's above national averages, one we pride ourselves on. What it means we're doing a good job for the students and the people of the city, which is important. Significant work, so, as you'd expect, on English, maths and SEN provision, and you'd expect that. So English and maths, just to give you an idea. So I was talking about the 3,600 16 to 18s come through to us. Half of those need English and maths. So coming out of the compulsory education bit is getting better, and we've seen some positive movement in terms of the outcomes across the city. But still, at the minute, there's about half of all the 16 to 18-year-olds that come to us still need English and maths alongside their programmes because they haven't attained the grade 4 you'd expect in those subjects. And we had 2,000 GCSE sittings across all ages this summer, and 4,000 English and Maths qualification sittings this year alone. So you can imagine that kind of volume of English and Maths training going on in the city. It's one of our major things that we do, and you see the volume coming through there. And 5,000 plus adults, and that's growing. I mean, those numbers have said 11,000. That was for 24-25. We're expecting that to be over 12,000 this year, because the growth in the college, both the adult numbers and 16 to 18 numbers over the last 3 years, has been significant, over 1,000 a year growth. And that's positive, because that means that people are engaging in education. Lucinda will talk about that as well, I'm sure, in terms of Encore South West. The engagement in education is definitely starting to take traction, and we just need that, especially with the opportunities coming forward. You will see this significant growth in key sectors. So we're talking this morning, we were talking about the Growth Alliance Plymouth and the key sectors there, but we're seeing significant growth in construction provision, significant growth in engineering and in health and business, which has been really positive, because those are some of the key things. In terms of your business, under there you've got logistics, you've got all those kind of things you're going to need to make the city run when you get this investment coming in. So there's really key skills going under there. And we've invested over £5 million over the last 2 years in these sectors of facilities. There's new facilities in health, and David, who's with us today, helped secure some of those funds actually in his previous role. So thank you very much in your previous capacity working for the college. And we've been able to build brand new engineering facilities, brand new health facilities, cybersecurity facilities, and business. And that has also stimulated growth, because as soon as you say before, as Councillor Creswell said, when you see it, you can be it. In some ways, when you see the facilities, you see the excitement, it brings people through the door. When they come, they get excited about going to those sectors. So you get a direct kind of correlation investment, and then people coming into those sectors. And it's really buoyant, which is really good. And it's worth noting the college is one of the main delivers of T-levels. So many of you have heard of A-levels, which we've all the traditional kind of route, but T-levels are the technical level route at level 3, which is an A-level equivalent. And we're one of the major providers of T-levels in the country at the minute. And those sectors, construction, engineering, business and health, have got buoyant T-level numbers of young people coming studying at level 3 with the view of going to the large technical roles into HE and through a vocational technical route, which is really important for the future of the city. So that's a pretty good summary, I would think, of the college where we are at the minute. Happy to take questions on that in a second as we go forward. So in terms of the Blue-Green Skills Hub, Green-Blue Skills Hub, I've got the Blue-Green Skills Hub at the minute. So essentially that's a part of the redevelopment of the Civic Centre. I'm working very closely with David and his teams, and it's been a really positive conversation for the last 2 years, I think, David, in terms of getting that going forward, and we're in a really good place in terms of delivery of that. So that shared vision is due to be realised to open as a new city centre campus in September of 2029. It will be delivering cutting-edge facilities and cutting-edge education in engineering, marine autonomy, construction, advanced manufacturing, IT and cybersecurity. The things that we're talking about today, this is aimed at delivering those as well, because they underpin those sectors of the blue and green area. We're modelling at the minute at 2,000 students a year coming through that. So what that's also going to do is bring that vibrancy back to the Civic Centre. And we talked about that when I was, I think, here in April, about that vibrancy in the city centre. So that's about 60 new courses being delivered to deliver those things over on an annual basis. And that really will, we're talking about capacity a lot, about how we can meet capacity. 2,000 students, think about that's almost a 20% increase in capacity for us to derive skills through, which are really important for what we're going to be doing in the future. Very much a focus on trying to get those high-value jobs to our local communities. How do we get people in the city to be able to realise the opportunities that are coming? Because we don't necessarily want it just to be people coming to the city to do these jobs. We want our local people to be able to get those high-value jobs, and that's kind of what this is about. They'll be able to see it and hopefully come to it. Can we move on? Thank you, Tim. And then Defence Technical Excellence College. So as you'll have noticed, so the Defence Industrial Strategy released on Monday. So what they've advised is there's going to be 5 Defence Technical Excellence colleges nationally. And the ambition is for City College Plymouth to be one of those 5 that will be announced. The intention of a Defence Technical Excellence College, it's a mouthful, I'll call it DTEC if I can. So the DTEC, the intention of the DTECs is they become a hub So they become a hub of skills, specialist training hubs. So you work with other education providers in the city and across the region. You work with the employers in the city in terms of the skills that are required. And the intention is to stimulate these skills needed to meet the demand and make sure you've got that good practice and excellence happening in the region. So that's the purpose of them. The trail in terms of what they are, fundamentally, this is a quote from the industrial strategy, defence industrial strategy. They're based in areas with deep specialisms in defence, where there's a large demand for skilled workers for the sector. And obviously for ourselves, then, is the wider supply chain. Because obviously, as we were talking about, in terms of the initiative and the GAP initiative, it's not just the defence sector that has a knock-on effect across the city and all the other sectors and supply chains that are really, really important there. As a college, we're already delivering across many of the key areas, so marine autonomy, cybersecurity, advanced manufacturing, engineering, the nuclear technologies, construction in there. So we're delivering across most sectors that are already key to that, and we're well positioned, I think, to be able to go forward and take forward that bid to be one of these DTECs. In terms of revenue, Karen did mention that there's revenue attached to these. There's revenue and capital funding. It hasn't been announced the actual value of that revenue and capital funding. That should come out later in the year. So we're expecting the opportunity to be released at some point before the close of this annual year, so before December. The details will be released in terms of how you bid and how much funding and the details with that. We know so far they said it's going to be a mix of revenue and capital funding. In terms of the construction technical excellence college that came before, how that funding was drawn and how it was allocated was slightly unclear. So I'm hoping when we get the defence one, it'll be more specific. And Karen, I'm sure by her side will be able to give us a very good view of how we can draw down and claim that funding should we be successful. And I suppose that there is probably the rub of it. So there's a little bit more information expected, but happy to take any questions.
Councillor Morton.
Good afternoon.
Sorry.
Good afternoon. Are you able to tell us a little more detail about cyber training for defence, please?
Do you want to take the questions outside? Yeah.
Do you want to take? We have another section which is Encore Southwest, which is part of this section. So I'm kind of in your hands, Chair, what you would prefer
We'll just
to do.
keep the flow as it goes. I'm conscious of time. If we get these questions, see if we can get it in.
Yeah. So okay. Do you want to answer?
Okay, do you want to repeat the question, Councillor Morton? Sorry.
Yes, I was wondering about, could you give us a little bit more detail about cyber training for defence and what would that look like?
Absolutely, thank you. So released some new facilities last year in terms of cybersecurity. Our intention at the minute is to get more people trained up in cybersecurity skills. So we've partnered with BITS Group, who people know in this area who are nationally renowned in cybersecurity. So collectively, we're running increased cybersecurity training. We've also been in conversations with our colleagues at the MOD, and they've been giving us input into the skills required, helping us shape in the curriculum. They've helped actually look at the skills we're delivering to our students, so we're getting a greater throughput for this is about talent. How do we get the talent to be able to go to the dockyard and be able to actually do the skills they need? So it's a collaboration at the minute. They're shaping our curriculum. We're working with specialist providers to deliver the skills that are needed.
We have Councillor Sarah Allen.
I'm happy to delay mine until the section on Encore Southwest.
And Councillor Macleay.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that report. It's exciting to hear about all the jobs and possibilities that are coming down the pipeline. I wanted to pick up on your point. Obviously, we want to educate people here, train them here, employ them here, and make sure that that talent is nurtured in Plymouth. I also wanted to pick up on your point of if you can see it, you can be it. Some of the industries that we have coming down the pipeline, those areas of growth, those jobs, what are we doing to showcase diverse talent in those fields to make sure that when we are attracting people into those industries, that we're attracting a diverse range of people to ensure that our growth is sustainable and diverse and dynamic?
Thank you. Okay, the two things there. So I think in terms of this taking the see it, be it a bit, I completely agree. So there's certain industries where you do not get diverse workforces, diverse kind of uptake. Some of that is about celebrating the diversity that is in the sector at the minute and celebrating and showing they've got people who have been through this that represent them and can see them as a point that they can aspire to, which is really, really important. There's about celebrating. We do that as a college very much, how we celebrate that diversity, how we celebrate the breadth and show the opportunity. It's also about trying to run specific projects, and we do so across the city with our colleagues across the city, about how you start to open those opportunities, whether from areas of maybe increased deprivation or areas where they may not see that as a potential future for them. How do you actually start to signpost? How do you start to make sure that people understand the value of those? That's through careers training, that's through proper IAG, that's through the aspiration piece. And we talked about there's a lot of aspiration in the city. It's about realising aspiration. And sometimes it's about very much making sure you've got really good advice and guidance up front, and then making sure you really, really celebrate it, and specifically do initiatives to get, for example, more women into engineering, more women into construction, which is really important, and increasing diversity, especially in apprenticeships, where there's not as much diversity in apprenticeships as we would like. I think that's something we'd see and to look to grow for. In terms of nurture and nurturing the increase in skills across the city, and our own kind of grow our own and make sure we increase that. In some ways, the same thing, isn't it? I think have we got the entry points for people in the city to be able to educate themselves and get to where they need to be? I think first thing, and that's something the work that Toby and the team and Tina are doing. And Tina, if you want to take up on that.
I was just going to say we've got a section on inclusive employment. If you want to leave it to the last section.
Sally, you're throwing curveballs here, which we like. Sally, just if you carry on with the on-course.
Yeah, if we let on-course and some of the questions you're asking are actually going to come up and be answered in more detail a bit later on. But thank you, Lucinda.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lucinda. I'm Principal of On-Course Southwest. Some of you may be familiar with On-Course Southwest. We have very familiar with delivering adult education, but we are post-16 and skills provider in the city, supporting over 7,000 learners on multiple different programmes right across the city. 16 to 19 is a focus for us, working really closely in partnership with Discovery College to offer more routes around technical and vocational training and learning for young people, and with significant growth and interest through that partnership with Discovery College over the last few years. We also work with other partners across the city, Shekinah and Odals, as well to offer adult education. Our funding streams are very diverse, and we rely on our grant funding, but also other opportunities and funding streams that come through throughout the year. Okay. So in terms of our learners, I think that's what I really want to come and talk to us about. Who are we engaging with? It's really important that we really know who our learners are and who the residents of Plymouth are, and how we can get more into education and progress through into job roles. So I think there's just some stats there around who we attract, who we get into education. Also, the locations are really important through our Plymouth Learning Hubs, making sure that we are attracting those hardest to reach into some form of education and building those pathways with them. And also, it's about when they are with us, we being the right provider for them, and being that kind of nurturing provider and that supportive provider to help them to progress. And I think one of the stats that we're really proud of is that actually 98% of learners that come to us would recommend us to others, to families, to friends. And obviously, we still need to work on that 2%. We're not happy. We want 100% of everyone to be happy with what we do. But I think that is just fantastic recognition of not just the education, but the support that we put in place for our learners. In terms of our provision, I think one of the things that I'm really proud of that we are developing is that partnerships with employers, partnership with charitable organisations in the city, but also kind of civic partners and education partnerships as well, with the universities and also City College. But those initiatives and those funding opportunities are there if we work in partnership. We're currently working on a digital innovations fund with DWP to support their customers and our customers in terms of accessing digital platforms, which is fantastic. Adult and foundation learning, as I said, is kind of the core of what we offer, particularly our tailored learning provision, but also in the last year we are growing our supported internships across the city, obviously working with all other providers that are really concerted effort to grow supported internship opportunities for young people, skills boot camps, and also apprenticeships. So we recognise the need for more apprenticeships in the city, and I've done a lot of work to recognise what sectors need that within the city and how we can grow those numbers of young people and adults that are entering apprenticeships in Plymouth. And then just finally, I think it's really important that we recognise our impact. We can do everything we can. We can draw down funding and get people into learning, but so what? What's our impact? And I think our impact comes from knowing our learners, knowing who they are and what they want to do and what they want to achieve, but also perhaps what they don't know that they can achieve as well, and helping them to do that. So our outstanding achievement rates, but also how we keep our learners, how we retain them is a really indicative to the supportive system that we have in place at Encore South West. And we're really proud of the work that we've done through our Your Futures programme, which is great that it's been nationally recognised by Pearson's with our Silver Award. And we are in for a Gold Award hopefully in November as well, which is fantastic recognition for the team and also for those learners. So what do we need to do and what do we need to focus on? If we're going to deliver skills, we've got to have the people and the teachers to be able to deliver it. So building that expert delivery team and getting those people kind of trained and upskilled is really, really important. I think if there's one thing that runs through all of our learners that we must focus on building is confidence. And the way that we do that is by celebrating their achievements and what they do as well. And finally, enriching lives. And I think one thing I would say is, and I think Paul touched on it as well, is a lot of people recognise the Ofsted badge up there, but the one sitting next to it is a matrix badge that we have been given for the quality of our information, advice and guidance that we give to our learners. So I see a really important part of what we do is around our careers programmes and our careers advice and guidance. So how can we make sure when we know more of the detail about the jobs that are coming, how can we make sure that we are not only advising our learners about what they can be, but also how they get there as well. And that's it from me.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Sarah Allen.
Thank you, Chair. This is brilliant, and the work that Encore South West are doing and plan to do with this is fantastic. Will this skills plan, I'm thinking the organisation I work for, plus things like parent groups concerned with children with special educational needs and disabilities, there's an awful lot who were off-rolled from mainstream school but could not always access places at special schools or even access education, health and care plans, and therefore I think that's a big contributing factor to the number of seats in the city, which is the new name for the NEET. I just wondered, is there anything specific, sort of targeted, to help those who were actually failed by the lack of provision that was available to them?
Yeah, I think the way that we support that around particularly those SEND learners is, again, advice and guidance around parents, particularly around our supported internship programme. So working with the team, it's really important that we work as the team of providers on supported internships in the city, and I'm sure Tina might want to say something about that. But that's one area. So working with the parents to understand the impact supported internships can have for young people, to give them that chance to develop the skills they need, and it's a fantastic programme in terms of working very closely with employers, work placements, and how we do that, but also through our family learning provision as well, and how we've developed that to support parents in really getting them back engaged with education where they need to be, but also understanding how they can support their young person as well.
I'm just going to come in on the back of that. I think our family learning programme, for me is really innovative. We have the ability to not use pre-prescribed courses. We can innovate and shape. So we can take the best in practice, and we've now got dedicated tutors who are specialists in parenting programme, parenting programmes, and and what we're trying to develop is a really innovative way to reach those programmes, but to bespoke that training. We recognise there's a gap in the system, and we're working really hard to address that gap, and work with parents to understand what they need and the levels of support that they need.
Could I just add to that as
Get in
well?
there, Sally.
Thank you, sorry. Could I just add to that as well, is that you do quite a lot of outreach work as well. You aren't just based on, because they've got their new offices in Coburg House, but it isn't just being based there, it's doing that outreach work because not everyone is that connected, and working in some of, particularly parts of our city which are more deprived or whatever is really important.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, and that's why we've kind of brought in the idea of the Plymouth Learning Hubs. It's so important that we meet people where they are, and so so we are very much, over half of our provision is out in the different communities, trying to engage with those individuals where they are and supporting them to think about their next steps and how they can progress.
Thank you. This is great, and I completely get the stuff with working with parents and the family learning. What about those young people? I'm thinking particularly up to the 18 to 25 age group who have sort of found themselves, they might be care leavers. Again, they might have come out of education with perhaps not having received all the help and support which they could have benefited from for whatever reason. I just want, in terms of, sort of practical help, like access to ICT so they can actually access training, transport, help with apprenticeships in terms of things like workplace reasonable adjustments. Has any thought been given to that?
Guys, Tina and then Paul.
Thank you, Chair. We're going to come on to that in the inclusive employment section. Our NEET numbers are really enviously low for a city. We've done a huge amount of work. We've got a brilliant programme which we're going to move on to next called Connect to Work, which for me is really going to change the dial in the city again. So I'll hold that if you're okay until we complete that
thought
presentation.
for the next bit, yeah. Paul?
Just going to briefly say, I mean, as a college, and ONCOS do amazing stuff. You do. We, as a college, also support a lot of learners with high needs and educational healthcare plans. So we have, I think this year, going to have 200 full-time students pretty much doing programmes who age from 16 up to 24. But they're fully supported learners. But we then have around about 300 learners who've got high needs who are doing vocational programmes who aren't necessarily going through the educational health plan routes. And they're going into mainstream programmes, learning skills to get them employment, and they'll be having support. Because all of our learners would get, as I would expect everybody, in terms of free transport, childcare support, they'll have IT support, they'll get free Chromebooks. So essentially the food bank, clothes banks, I think in some it's that hidden support that goes under the radar. I mean, the amount of access to the clothes banks is quite staggering, never mind the food banks and the counselling and the welfare that goes with it. So I think there's a lot going on under the surface to support these learners. But I think it's really interesting that you get a lot of learners, and Tina and I will talk about this a lot of learners these days going into the mainstream vocational programs because essentially it's about offering that opportunity and offering the pathway for them, for the high needs learners as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. I mean, the last meeting we had the university, which was fantastic. Now we've got the City College and ONCOS and the council working together. So that was fantastic. Really appreciated your presentations and for you being here and the ongoing relationship we have. Thank you. If we move now into segment 4, which is Connect to Work, I'll hand over to Sally, who's I'm enjoying the process. If you could just take us through that and then introduce everyone, Sally, that would be great.
Thank you very much. That's sort of, I was expecting another phrase of "take it away." I'm quite. You can obviously sense the enthusiasm and excitement that there is here amongst these teams of people working together. So our next section, as Councillor Ricketts has said, is Connect to Work. So this is a new £7 million workforce and employment programme funded by the Department for Work and Pensions. It's going to be running for the next 5 years, and this programme will both support local residents to access employment whilst also supporting the city in growing its workforce and filling job vacancies. The programme is focused on inclusive employment, which is quite a big theme, I think, that's coming out here from the committee. And we really are excited that it is actually going to be delivered in-house in Plymouth. So David Wales is our new Recruitment Connect to Work Delivery Manager, who will step us through this programme. This has the real potential to disrupt some of that intergenerational inactivity that we see in parts of Plymouth and change deeply entrenched patterns of young people not being in employment, education and training. And as we've been talking about that, we're talking about them as seeking employment, education or training. We want the best for our young people who need help right now, and for the children growing up in our city who will become young people very soon. This will also serve the needs of cohorts such as our care leavers and veterans and also the homeless. So, Chair, if you're happy to proceed, I'll now pass across to David to do the next part of the presentation.
Very familiar with David, so take us away. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just 4 slides from me. I will talk through the overview and just pull out some of the points Councillor Criswell has outlined. I will talk a little bit about the delivery and then really address the Plymouth, exciting Plymouth approach that we're going to take with Connect to Work. As been said, it is a national programme, but is being launched as we speak across various local authorities. What we are trying to do is be on the front foot as far as that's concerned in terms of the internal delivery. It's a DWP, Department for Work and Pensions programme. If you go back to the graph that Toby talked through, we hope to play a critical role in actually boosting the numbers of people who are involved in, engaged in work, and ensuring people who are currently economically inactive or people at risk of becoming economically inactive are supported. This programme should be able to help with that. What's really key to say about this, it is a voluntary programme. It's not going to be mandated. And I think that's a critical part in terms of the eligibility when we're looking and working with people that we want to help them. We're working alongside them and we can give them that bespoke, intense support throughout the programme. Some of it will be aimed, it will be aimed at supporting over 2,000 residents in Plymouth. So bringing in around 7 million across the 5 years. We are working with Devon County Council and Torbay as DWP have assigned prescribed the areas as far as the geography is concerned. So moving on to the delivery side of things, we are, as been mentioned, going to run this as an internal team, offering there are 2 separate programmes, and again, sort of been mentioned around mouthfuls. This is the Supported Employment Quality Framework, or SQAF, and individual placement and support models, which is essentially supporting people who are struggling with barriers, whether that's disability or other complex barriers, to get into work and to advocate for them in terms of things mentioned earlier around what the reasonable adjustments could be made to help them work. Delivery will be based in Coburg House. We're sat alongside Encore Southwest and Skills Launchpad, offering a much more cohesive programme or set of programmes and support for residents. But like Encore Southwest, we're conscious that we need to be out in those communities, and we'll be looking at working with wellbeing hubs and other key partners across the city to make sure we are out there supporting local residents. We see in terms of referrals internally, there are obviously a lot of City Council teams that are already working with these groups that have been mentioned and talked about: care leavers, care experienced people, veterans, homeless, those with alcohol and drug challenges. We will work with all of those groups and really try and support them to get back into work by looking at referrals from our colleagues in the council. So moving on to the broader city point of view, we know we can't do that without actually working with some of the key partners already working with these groups of people across the city, including Plymouth Community Homes, Live Well and Shekinah and Improving Lives. And as I've mentioned, some of the wellbeing hubs where a lot of smaller CICs, etc., will be based, where we see delivery being really key to that. It's going to start to address the gaps between the jobs and the local workforce. So again, going back to what we were seeing earlier, where can we advocate for people with disabilities, neurodiversity challenges, mental health, or other key sector groups that have been identified? And that support that we'll give will be, as I mentioned, for people who are out of work, that we will sit with them and literally kind of work through some of the challenges, look at how they can get back into the job market or into the job market for some of them. And we will work with them, or can work with them, for up to 12 months. The employment specialists that will be working in my team will have lower caseloads than other provision of programs that are similar to this. So they'll be working with 20 to 25 people, which does mean that it is going to be bespoke. It is going to be very much tailored to that individual, and make sure that they are supported and feel supported. It does also include looking at that group of people who are at risk of falling out of work. So that's a key sort of issue in terms of ensuring people remain economically active. So the approach that we're taking is a really innovative place-based approach in terms of, obviously I mentioned Coburg House. We are recruiting people from across the city with a whole range of experience and lived experience, and we are expecting those people to work very closely with those groups of people. That will include apprentices. So at the moment, we're looking to recruit 3 apprentices, including a really exciting peer support worker role. In addition to that, we've recruited, or we're working with the University of Plymouth to have some researchers sit alongside our work, which has the added benefit of publicising the work we're doing and giving us a critical friend to support what we're doing.
Thank you, David. That's great. It's a subject close to my heart, welfare to work. I've got many happy memories of being in Coburg House when I used to work for Working Links, and it's pretty spiritual stuff which you're doing there. And it's great to see you building that team up. So we have Councillor McCarthy.
There we go. Apologies, I was late as well. Great start today. Great to hear. Obviously, this fantastic.
Josh, please try and get a bit closer to. I'm just conscious of the public.
Is that better, Chair?
Thank you.
How about that? Go for that. Fantastic, the defence pipeline and the knock-on effects that's having with the skills pipeline, essentially, for our learners in the city. It was interesting to hear you mention veterans in there. I wondered sort of if you could give us some more detail on where veterans fit into this, emerging landscape of skills and defence and a really positive future. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you. So we already have, and we have in place a number of sector coordinators, skills sector coordinators, and we've already developed a talent retention coordinator, and that includes veterans, as well as college leavers and university leavers. And it's how we showcase the opportunities in the city to retain the talent. And quite often when we retain veterans, we retain the family as well. That's really, we're working really hard to collate all of the job opportunities and work with all of those groups, you know, universities, colleges, and veterans to showcase the jobs available today and in the future, and how we align that with transition, and then those people transitioning out of the services.
Councillor Morton.
Thank you. I'm wondering what kind of restrictions can you see about putting people in placements? What kind of difficulties would there be? And why can you only help people for a period of 12 months?
So the DWP have set the parameters in terms of the caseloads and how we work with people. I think in terms of our, we would be as flexible as we could with people. We are anticipating some people would be, we won't need to work with them for that period of time. So, where we can offset some of those, it is really a modelling basis around the financial side of things. So if we need to work with people a little bit longer, there is a potential that we could do that. And we do have that flexibility within the programme. That is the guideline that's being given. So in terms of that expectation. So what was there was another part of the question as well.
Yeah, I was wondering about why would there be restrictions on placements for different individuals because of what they've been through and that kind of thing.
We take every person is individual, and what this approach does through the IPS model, through the CQF model, both models, it provides a personalised action plan and a personalised support. So and the caseloads are really low. So you'll have the caseworkers will have caseloads of 20 or 25 people they're supporting at any one time. So that's really personalised and individualised, and it will be done on a case by case basis. And there's really good investment. I think this is such a fantastic funding opportunity for our city, and really to lift many people who have been in intergenerational inactivity, and this is a significant amount of investment now to move people into employment.
Thank you.
Sally's keen to get in there.
I was just going to quickly say one of the things as well is about building that confidence, and I think that's something that Lucinda brought out there. You're talking for those people with having that individual approach. You can actually build confidence, and as confidence builds, people become more independent and are basically able to fly. So I think that's one of the key aspects of this.
Thank you. Councillor Rainsford.
Thank you, Chair. We've got around 40,000 people who are economically inactive at the moment in the city. Of those, our long-term sick are well above the national average. So we're looking at around 2,000 people on top of the national average figure. What are we doing? I hear and applaud the work you're doing in order to try and get people fit for the workplace, but it's about having employers who are able then to take them on the next stage and can support them if necessary. So what sort of discussions are you having with employers? Because it's that employer support bit that actually is absolutely vital in some of this, because we know you train people well. It's just getting them into a workplace and hoping they'll settle down and it'll work for them.
So the Connect to Work programme we're delivering, our place-based approach, is really innovative. So we do have caseworkers, but working alongside us, we're going to have health practitioners and mental health practitioners seconded from across health services. We're also going to have a number of employment coordinators who will work with employers to look at more diverse recruitment and those workplace adjustments that need to take place in the workplace. So it's a systems approach to securing work you know, for our residents that work for them. And, you know, and quite often we'll find that work, but the 12 months period plus will allow those. It's not just about getting people into work, it's keeping people into work and then having those regular conversations with employers and with the individuals, you know, so it's that employment is sustained.
Okay. Can I do a very quick supplementary? And is the model we're using based on anything anywhere else in the country that's already proved to work, or is it completely innovative?
There's two frameworks, which is the individual placement scheme, which is well known and particularly for supporting people with mental health. And then there's a CQF model, Supported Quality Employment Framework, which is more for people with learning disabilities. So they're two proven quality assurance, and we've got 15 months to build towards the quality assurance framework. But what we've done in our innovation is around how we've co-located our services into Coburg House, right above Citizens Advice Bureau. We've got a single integrated front door for employment services, which includes On Course, our Careers Plymouth, and other services. Skills Launchpad, where there's 80 multi-agencies working together, you know, and we hide the wiring for the individual, and it's how we triage the right support. So our innovation is around in our delivery, but the quality assurance frameworks are standard across the country.
David was keen to get in.
I was only going to add that I think you were asking about that it's not just about the individual, it's about the employer as well, and how the employer buys into that journey. So there is another interface which is ensuring the employers are bought in, because as you know, I think you're alluding to, you know, there's lots of things the employer can do to make that transition succeed or fail, whether it's, you know, making adaptation to the workplace, or terms and conditions or policies, or enabling people who maybe have pre-existing conditions. That's another package, and the two butt together perfectly well. So we started that work actually around, if you remember, we had the COVID recovery plan Resurgam. We set in a Resurgam charter with the businesses. That's really successful and continuing. And the next pillar of the economic plan that you'll be scrutinising looks at the employer side of that. So it's not just the skills side, but it's also the employment side, terms and conditions, childcare, provision of all those things. And that's, I think, coming to your next meeting.
Thank you. It is Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chair. Really great stuff you're sharing. Really welcome the focus on the economically inactive, which always seems like an insensitive term, needs now seats. I'm really interested in parallel with the underemployed in our city, which I think was a feature that came up in the recent study the council did on kind of the gender pay gap and like-for-like roles. We often find particularly those with caring responsibilities as they re-enter the labour market will be going into roles which are perhaps below their previous skill level, below where they could be, often less hours and so forth. Do any of the programmes that you're working on look at underemployment alongside getting people into work and retention? Thank you.
So the answer is yes. So Connect to Work is one of the delivery plans under the overarching Get Britain Working plan. And within the Get Britain Working plan, that's very much around creating a skills escalator. And we did put an example of a skills escalator in your reading paper. So all of the programmes we do around our adult skills funding, working with colleges, is how we move our residents through the skills system. So moving people into employment, but moving those from low pay to medium pay to high pay, and how we create that systems approach to move people through so they can progress through their careers, and we embed that lifelong learning approach.
I love the answer. So say I'm chatting to a woman with good qualifications, but is on a part-time contract in an area not opportunity. Where shall I send her? What should she do? How does she, if we were to say in sort of non-council terms, what she should do to access your escalator? What should she do tomorrow?
So tomorrow she should, we're creating the single employment and skills front door in Coburg House and signpost to Skills Launchpad Plymouth. And I'm going to come on to that shortly in our presentation.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Rainsford asked my question just after I got your eye, so it's all fine.
Guys, Thank you. So this is nationwide. Councils have got money from DWP to deliver this. Are we confident in our model in Plymouth? Because we're obviously doing it in-house as such. A lot of councils I see outsourcing to private providers and that sort of thing. As a general sort of question, do we think that we've got the right model in Plymouth to deliver this?
We've been building the foundations for this for many years. I'll work through Skills Launchpad. We've done a number of test trial and pilots through Departments of Works and Pension. We are well positioned to deliver this programme. We've already had huge success, so we're not creating a programme from scratch. What we're doing is scaling our existing delivery.
Do we have any idea? Okay, they're not watching. They're not watching. Are we confident? Do we know the kind of percentages of how many councils do it themselves and how many have outsourced? Have you got any sort of idea in your head of how people are doing things?
We could take that away and have a look, but most councils are doing a blended version. So most are keeping SQF in-house because they're aligning that to things like supported internships and then commissioning the IPS. Or areas, because it's not necessarily coming into councils, it's coming into areas. But we could take that away and feed the information back. But it's a real mix and it's a real blend. And some are fully delivering in-house, some are fully commissioning, and some are doing a blended offer.
It's just obviously it's close to my heart. Obviously, it's great that you're at Coburg House and you all seem to be sitting together with the right partners, which is good. So it's just, as a council, obviously we need to look at everything we do. Should we be doing skills? Should we be outsourcing? But it seems like, yeah, we're confident we've got the right model then happy days. We'll see how it pans out over the next few years. Anyone else? That's great. Really great to hear what we're doing. Really appreciate your presentation, David and Tina. You're going to stay with us. Other people are still welcome to stay with us because questions do come in at different angles. So we'll move into our final segment, item 4, inclusive employment and education update. And I'll hand over to Sally, who will do her thing. And introduce the speakers. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. Thank you. Thanks very much for that, Steve. This is area very, very close to my heart as well. Not all these areas are close, but this is one particularly, given my background. And nationally, only 7% of young people with education healthcare plans enter into paid employment of 16 hours or more. So supported internships are a proven pathway to enable this, as a national figure indicates that they can increase the proportion of these young people who enter employment from 7% to 25%. And in Plymouth, we have worked really hard, not only to grow the number of opportunities, but to improve the quality and focusing on working with inclusive partners. And kind of like going back to the previous presentation, we do, I think, very much through our supported internships, have a sort of model, especially in terms of eventually then getting the right employers who support our young people, because the worst thing possible would be to go into a supported internship and to fail, because that is going to completely crush your confidence. And we have chosen the right sectors, the right employers to work for, which has meant we've had a superb level of success, which has, of course, been acknowledged nationally in terms of number, up for, I think, yet another shortlisted for another presentation, for another award, shortlisted only this time, which will be in October. So due to this, our success rate in supporting young people with educational, health and care plans, these are our young people who have special educational needs, into employment is actually much higher than average. And Discovery College is one of our supported internship providers, and it secured employment offers for 100% of their students for the second year running, demonstrating the power, as you've just alluded to, Steve, is partnership working. And in this item, we'll also share with you, these aren't validated results, but we'll also share with you some of our early education outcomes for 2024-2025 academic year. These results, as I've just said, are not validated, and they may change if schools have appeals or whatever. However, I'm pleased to share that at all levels we have seen improvements, and we're seeing sort of continuous improvement on previous years. The published results will be available later in the year, but I'm sure we will discuss them a lot at Education Scrutiny, and where we will have more detail. But we are particularly pleased, and this is really important, to share that disadvantaged students have made significant progress, and that's something to really be celebrated. So, Chair, again, if you're happy, I will hand over to Tina Brinkworth and also to Isabel Kalinsky to, as you're saying, take it away.
Take it away.
Thank you. So I'm Tina Brinkworth, I'm Head of Skills in Post 16. Really delighted to be here today because when we're talking around system change and are we ready for Connect to Work, we absolutely are. We launched Skills Launchpad as part of that pandemic recovery. And since 2020, and since it's been developed and went online since 2022, we've had 60,000 unique users to the website who are self-helping for support around advice around employment opportunities and skills training. We've also delivered nearly 2,000 face-to-face appointments. We've supported 989 young people and 911 learners. Now, these are learners who are economically inactive, and we supported more than that who are already in employment to transition into better paid employment opportunity jobs. The success of Skills Launchpad, that really is built on those really strong foundations. We have over 80 partners operating within that space, and what we do is we hide the wiring. So we triage the right support for the young person, the resident, so they access the right services. And they only have to tell their story once as well. It's fantastic now that we're actually co-locating in Coburg House, and we have this single integrated front door for employment skills and advice. You can go to the next slide, please, Toby. So, supported internships. In January 2023, we had 9 supported internships with one provider. As of this week, as of today, we have 72 young people on a supported internship across the city. We've probably got one of the highest numbers across the country, and we've been able to grow this really quickly. And this is real system change. We're now working with 6 providers, and we have a further provider coming on shortly in December. 75% of those people are on a supported internship are 18 or under. And previously they were over 24, which means they're entering into the employment market much earlier. And we also know the earlier you enter the market, that your progression, your opportunities are going to be greater as well and going to be increased. We are on course to secure over 100 placements, which will be fantastic for our city. And we are, like I said previously, we're outperforming counties. We have a fixed rate model from our high needs funding. This is being replicated across other areas as well. So we've got other local authorities also coming on board to adopt and follow our practice. So the impact of the work that we've done across Skills Launchpad, supported internships and other programmes through the Adult Skills Funding and City College and other providers is that our young people not in employment education, our numbers are really low. It's 4.5%. We were at 10%, and we're now at 4.5%. This is much, much lower than regional and national averages. Of the 50% of those young people who are not in employment are actually actively engaged in our services. So that they are what we call seeking employment education and training, and they're on a pathway to employment. We've also seen, particularly in some cohorts, significant movement. So our employment and education training status for our young people, especially with a special educational need or disability, has increased from January 23 from 72%, and we're at a really impressive 92% today. We're absolutely leading the way around inclusive employment. And over the last 5 years, we've also seen our economic inactivity rate move from 1% below national averages to 1% higher. So we are our market, we're doing really well, and we've done a significant shift across the city. Our programmes have been nationally recognised. We won the LGC for our Supported Internship programme. We won the Diversity Inclusion Award earlier this year. And Lucinda mentioned earlier, we've secured a BBC Silver Award for the Your Future programme, and you know there's a potential we could secure a Gold Award in November. We were NJ finalists for our Skills Launchpad Plymouth this year, and on the 3rd of October, we're going to, you know, we're down as a finalist for the co-production of our Supported Internship programme. I'm going to hand across to Isabel now, who's going to step you through some educational outcomes.
Hi everybody, I'm Isabel Kalinsky, Head of Education and Virtual School for Plymouth City Council. Thank you very much for having me here today. So I'm just going to take you on a bit of a whistle-stop tour in terms of our attainment results that came through in the summer term. So I think it's really important to say that in Plymouth, educational attainment is shaped really not only by our schools but also our remarkable breadth of partners, and that ranges from our nursing and family support services through to our community organisations, early years settings and so on, because as we all know, learning begins well before the age of 5. We have a really rich network of collaboration because we work really hard to ensure that children and young people are supported academically, socially and emotionally in order to really lay those strong foundations for future employment, you know, especially when we think about today, and what we're here to discuss is around, you know, skills and growth of our city. So it's really important that we get it right, cradle to career. So it's important to say when I talk about the data that it's the data is not validated yet. The validated data will come in the autumn term, and we'll have a full comprehensive attainment data report published in January. With an initial one going to our Children, Young People, Families Scrutiny Committee in October. So if you could skip forward, thank you. It's also really important to note that this academic year there's no Progress 8 measure, okay, because there were no Key Stage 2 SATs taken for this cohort, so that measure is missing from the data set. Skip forward again. So for the summer Key Stage 4 results, which you'll know as GCSEs, nationally there was a slight decline. So this was reflected in some areas of our Plymouth data. Notably, you'll see from the slide the decline in the percentage of pupils receiving grade 4, which in old money is a grade C. So that was down 0.1% in maths, and we had a 0.6 decline in English. So that does signal the need for continued focus on improving core attainment within the city. Okay, but that was reflected nationally, so we are, you know, we're the same in Plymouth. However, for a second year in a row, more children in Plymouth achieved grades 5+, which is a strong C and above, and more children achieved grade 7s, and grade 7 is equivalent to an A or above. Once all the data is collected and validated in the autumn term, we do expect to be at least in line with, if not slightly above, our national benchmarks. We continue to sit well above national benchmarks regarding our Key Stage 4 outcomes for disadvantaged children, and this area goes from strength to strength in Plymouth and really does reflect the hard work and dedication of our school community, the children who sit the exams themselves, and also their families and the support that their families give to help their children get there. So at Key Stage 5, for our A levels, we expect to confirm a significant shift from a position of negative progress in academic year 2023-24 to plus 0.1 positive progress, and a continued improvement to plus 0.23 in applied level 3 subjects. Okay, so we are seeing really strong progress for our Key Stage 5 in our Key Stage 5 cohort. We continue to see improvements across all areas of early years and Key Stage 2 outcomes. And again, this reflects the strength of the partnerships across our schools in Plymouth and our commitment to getting it right, like I say, cradle to career. So the continued improvement in our children and young people's educational outcomes are indicative of the extent and strength of our collaboration with our Plymouth schools, but we know that we still have more to do. Thank you.
If you go on to the education slide, Toby. Last one, thank you. And I think just to finish,
We know that skills doesn't start.
Tina, just get the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Just to finish, we know that skills doesn't start at the age of 16 plus. So there is extensive outreach across the city from early years, primary, secondary school, and there's lots of activity. Much of this is coordinated into primary schools and extensive outreach. And we just provided some examples, which you can see on the screen. So things from, Skills Launchpad Live, which over 2,000 students attend every year, which is the largest showcase of careers across the city. From the amount of work which Babcock completes, where they've got over 300 STEM ambassadors delivering hundreds of hours every month, and they've recently just completed the open days within the naval base as well. Mission Mammoth, we've got sectorial focuses to showcase the opportunities within sectors, and site open days, along with the Plymouth Manufacturing Group and Building Plymouth apprenticeship awards. So there's activity at every year group, every level. The aspiration is that every child has a STEM intervention every year, but we know from research that 4 is a magic number. So if a young person has 4 unforgettable experiences, they're 4 times more likely to go into those sectors. And we're ready for questions.
Thank you for that. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering if there are any asks for government in terms of what we're doing with young people with EHCPs who might have special educational needs or disabilities, just in the context of SEND reform that is coming down the line. There's a lot of talk about government unveiling, reforms to the SEND system. We don't know exactly what they are, but is there anything that we need to be asking of government to say, actually, we're doing some really good stuff here, and there's a chance, who knows what comes down the line, that maybe that could have an impact on the work that we're doing?
So we have put a number of asks back into government. That does include, support for inclusion, belonging, and for family first programmes and that early help and support. So all of that has been built into our asks.
It's also fair to say that the government wellbeing and schools bill very much talks about these key things about belonging. It talks about not just only achievement, but it also talks about thriving and achieving. And it's also fair to say that we have, in some ways, been very innovative in some of the things that we've been doing, particularly in terms of special educational needs and inclusion. We have the GATI, which is another one, which is actually the graduated approach to inclusion, which is an online set of resources for teachers, for parents, for young people as well, which we are also up for an award for at the NASN awards, along with our supported internship. So in fact, some of the work that we're doing is actually feeding directly into government, and just out of interest is that our things like providing a school that sort of like support and nurturing environment. We had these schools that were early adopters for breakfast clubs, and we actually did a piece of research to look at what was the feedback, what were the great things, good things, even better if, because that's the sort of terms I would use as a teacher, and gave that feedback directly to actually through one of our local MPs, and was fed directly to the minister and to the DfE, and we had feedback as a result. And they were really pleased with some of the suggestions that we actually made. So where it's actually I think it's very much a sort of a two-way process that's actually going on, and we're showing sort of like on the ground what you can do and feeding that back into government.
Thank you. Charlotte.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for those updates, really useful. My question sort of stitches together part of what you said, Tina, about the these kind of 4 interventions that children need to get excited about something, and kind of some of the themes actually from the earlier sessions and actually from our previous scrutiny, where there was this imperative to make sure that children of very young age are having those interventions that realise the new jobs coming down the line are for them. And I just really want to probe that a bit more. Can we get a bit? You mentioned the interventions that need to. Can you just go into that a bit more? The STEM interventions. Also had a really, when we did our visit to the dockyard, Brigadier Tanner was telling us, how he wants to break down the walls of the dockyard metaphorically, so that if you're from a family that maybe doesn't have pre-existing links to the dockyard or to the military, that you think those jobs are for you. So I just really want to probe that. I think we all get the intent and the spirit, but what's the actual glue, in sort of substantial terms to flesh that out a bit more?
So we know in our city that over 60% of employment is in STEM sectors, and lots of those industries are hidden. They're hidden on industrial estates. They're hidden, in the hospital. They're hidden behind the dockyard wall. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create the opportunities through a more joined up approach, where we're bringing all partners across the city to make sure that we're reaching all of the students across all year groups and delivering different programs. So, from early years, it's more around an introduction, but as you move into primary school, it's really about how you excite and engage young people. And then when you, so by doing STEM workshops and linking those STEM workshops back into the curriculum, so how do you bring how do you bring all of this in, alive? So we know in the curriculum you have to just, at year key stage 3, 2, you're looking at light, for example. So we can have ambassadors in schools actually doing those experiments around light. And then as we move into secondary schools, it's around how do we create site open days, so young people get onto sites and actually see and experience those workplaces. How do we bring industry into schools? How do we embed that into the curriculum? How do we align with workshops? And there's everything from from Mission Mammoth, which is a primary school programme which is linked to industry, but it goes across a whole term. So young people work with the box and members from industry to actually design a new home for the mammoth. But they've got to consider in that the design, the lighting, all of the environment required for a mammoth, for example. And that programme goes across a whole term. So we're doing it in a really fun way, aligned to the curriculum, and it covers a whole variety from site visits, industry taster days, work experience programmes, and workshops and talks and assemblies. Do you want to come in, Isabel?
Yeah, also just to say, as part of the education work stream, we are going to be meeting with our multi-academy trust CEOs in the next couple of weeks, and I've already started early conversations with Plymouth primary heads and Plymouth secondary heads to look at what we can do and how we can think and coalesce around the potential of the Growth Alliance Plymouth and all of that investment, and what that work needs to look like across all of our schools and including early year settings, so that we're raising aspirations right from the get-go so that children can see that Plymouth is a wonderful place to live and to work, and that there are really good prospects for them here. So it's about making sure that we are working as an entire education community around this opportunity. And essentially, I think sometimes there can be some fragmentation across academies, across they don't necessarily work together, schools don't necessarily work together in the way that they used to, but this is a real opportunity to do that and to be very ambitious for our city, and that's the work that's starting this month, so I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Can I?
Oh, sorry. Councillor Holloway and then Sally, just come in.
I was just going to say a couple of things. One is that through building Plymouth, we've actually got a number of our companies in the building industry actually who have teamed up with mostly secondary schools, but we also have a primary school that's actually teamed up as well, and that's really important because we keep coming back to you cannot be what you actually can't see. So, and just as an example, I think what is really important, and there's some fantastic things that are going on in terms of exposing young people and particularly our younger children as well to what you can possibly be. And Mission Mammoth is a fantastic example. But I think one of the things we need to push on is to make sure that those opportunities are equally able to be accessed and are accessed for all of our schools. And sort of going back to some time ago, it's been 10 years ago when I was in primary education, we were fortunate enough to have one of the parents of two of the children in my class was actually worked in Babcock, and as a consequence we did lots of things with Babcock with our years 4, 5 and 6 children. But you need to make sure that that isn't sort of like piecemeal, that is actually rolled out and all schools are having that opportunity, so that all children have that opportunity. Might be something to have a further look at.
All right, for supplementary, thank you. That's a really helpful addition, Sally. I think like the intent is there, the great examples are there. I think what I am unclear on is the scale and the numbers of the interventions and how they match that gap. And I don't know if that's a small gap, a big gap. We've got good work. And I wonder if maybe we can get a bit more on that afterwards. I'd be really interested to understand, do you think if we stay the course with our current plans, we're going to match that gap for those pre-16 interventions?
So we encourage everyone who does STEM outreach to become a STEM ambassador. And if you become a STEM ambassador, then every intervention is logged in a national database. So from that national database, we can understand which schools have been engaged, which year groups have been engaged, and we can understand the gaps in provision, and it gives us really good data to analyse. So we are recording the activity locally and nationally. I would say there's probably under-recording, but even the information we have, we know there's significant outreach, and I would say for every activity that's recorded, there's probably about another 2 interventions which isn't being recorded.
David?
I would answer that question by saying that, in the last, I think it is the last 5 years, the scale of that investment we've seen and the growth and the longevity of that defence investment is going to provide a completely new quantum of challenge for the city. And I think, not one of us think that business as usual is where we're at. I just don't think that's our headspace. So, I think, that's what the Team Plymouth approach is about. It's actually taking our ambition, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, from a city trying to figure it out by ourselves to suddenly a city being able to do it on a national stage with asking to national governments and to join things up. So I think if going back to the very first presentation where you had the list of outputs and things that need to happen, those list of skills things, and it's a long time ago we saw them, how we articulate that ambition, so not the ambition, the opportunity to our populace is a major challenge for us over the next few years. So I think all I would reassure is I don't think any of us are sitting here thinking, we'll just keep going now. I think we've been given this unique opportunity. I think every one of us has to think differently, redesign, step up, and I think that's what the Team Plymouth opportunity is now. And the fact that skills is mainstreamed as one of those, I think, in answering your question, I think that's the challenge for us now. From doing massive heavy lifting by ourselves as a city to suddenly have the opportunity to completely transform the system with that opportunity. And I think, as it's been articulated a bunch of times, it really is a once in a generation opportunity. So I'm at the space of, we're still in that discovery phase, we're still in that thinking phase, but your articulation, business as usual isn't where we're at. It's a whole different trajectory.
Yeah. So we're talking about sort of headlines of skills. What would you say are the biggest skills shortages we have as a city, as a country? Just as a headline to the public that we need.
I'm an engineer, so I'm going to say engineering. Toby, do you want to come in?
I mean, I think, as David said, we're certainly still in the discovery stage. So this is not, and the research that's been commissioned and happening now will unpick some of this. But, we can see headlines around construction and the construction sector being a key sector where and that's a regional challenge, and the investment into the naval base will only exacerbate that. And the CBI have been talking about this and have articulated this. So I think there's something particular around construction and supporting construction. There's a number of particular skill sets that have been identified, but I think it's probably not my place to say this right now. It'll be when we get the sort of full report to be able to dig into particular areas. But I think certainly there's key sectors, construction being one, where we can see that emerging.
And sort of going on from Matt's point about our level of reach, what's our level of reach to the government about skill shortages, and how do we do that through members of parliament? Is there forums that we can talk about skill shortages with, and where the supply and demand is? Leader, come in. I'm sure you've been to parliament to represent us.
I'm using WhatsApp. The thing is, I think we've got to remember is in January, I think I was here, I was certainly at the Growth Board talking about our Olympic bid. And here we are in September, where the government have agreed with us that not only is the defence of the realm a national endeavour, defence of the Plymouth economy is a national endeavour, and the fact that we need a regional response to that. So, we've been having conversations with politicians from across the region about why they need to get stuck in and advocating and supporting what we're trying to do. They've got a responsibility about awakening the possibilities that exist to their own communities. We've got so many opportunities here that even if we gave every single person who's currently in need a job, I think we've said this before, we'd still be about 25,000 short. So we're going to have to not just get accelerating in Plymouth, we've got to talk to everybody. So we've had good meetings recently with Cornwall Council, for example, to talk about how the activity that's going to go on in Plymouth will benefit Cornwall communities. Chief executives of our authority are talking to chief exec of the other councils in Devon about the possibilities for them and why they need to be aware of what is going on. Obviously, the big thing, the big change with that Team Plymouth is that we have government buy-in. We have ministerial buy-in. I mean, one of our local MPs, Luke Pollard, just got promoted in the Ministry of Defence. He's very aware of what we need. But of course, the Secretary of State is also very aware of what we need to do. And of course, we're not just talking to the Secretary of State for Defence, we're talking to local government minister, Steve Reid, now the new one, Matthew Pennycook, the housing minister. We've talked to quite a bit about our needs. And of course, both Sally and I intend to try and speak to Bridget Phillipson when we next see her about what we need from her in terms of education and skill support. So the change with the Team Plymouth is that we're beginning to see it as a government effort, a whole government effort, rather than it being corralled in a particular place. So we'll be using every trick in the book, including our local MPs speaking up at every opportunity to make sure we get what we need. But you're absolutely right to be asking the questions about, are we sure we know what it is we need? And we've got to make sure that we've got all of those asks nailed down. We'll be talking about transport to and from the dockyard, to and from the places where the upskilling is going to take place, talking about the housing requirements, we're talking about all the other things. So this is going to be and I know the phrase game changer is so, you know, meaningless really, but, you know, this is an epic adventure we're about to go on. I'll put it no less powerfully than that. We won't have seen anything on this scale in Plymouth since the post-war reconstruction of the city. I'll put it like that. And everybody's got to understand this. This will be huge. This will be transformational for our city. It will transform lives. It'll increase money in people's pockets. It will increase ambitions and desires and needs. And they won't be a part of Plymouth, I hope, who won't be touched by this. And that'll be our job as a council. One of our jobs is to make sure that every community in Plymouth feels the benefit of what we're about to do.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm happy to hear that's great. That's absolutely fantastic. And that Plymouth needs the brightest and best. Of course it does. And that touches every department of government, Home Office, visas. We want as many highly skilled people as we can possibly get, as much as we want people from Plymouth to aspire to the higher echelons. We will need people from all walks of life, from different countries, from around the country to make Plymouth a better place. So I'm glad you're having those conversations at every level of government. Thank you. Any further questions? I think we've kind of wrapped it up quite succinctly there. Was there anything in your papers that I think the aim was just to cover all those papers, which we've done. The presentations replicate most of the report. Is there anything that anyone read last night and wanted to raise? Well, that's a good sign. Lucinda, anything you'd like to add as a key partner? No, everyone, thank you for earlier. Amanda, anything you want to add? Just because you haven't said anything? Just thought you've been there, you're very important to what we do.
The scale of the opportunity we've outlined, and I think one of the phrases we use is no child left behind. And that's the ask. That's why it needs upscaling. It's every child. So that scale is absolutely our endeavour.
Well, thank you. That's been great. It's been a really good couple of hours. Bit of administration now on the work programme. Sorry? Oh, Sally, again. Help. You and me, Sally, today. Sorry, Sally. Wrap it up for us.
Could I just say thank you? Could I say thank you to all of, obviously, my team, this team that have put this together, but could I say thank you as well, particularly to the fact of yourself, Chair, for actually giving this, I think, a great opportunity for us to actually come and present this and to put skills really absolutely there centre stage, and I think we'd be delighted, especially we've got some research that's happening and such that we'll be able to feed back. I think we'd be more than delighted to come back again if you were to invite us again. So thank you very much indeed.
It's been a pleasure, and skills is one of the biggest topics. It's in the national conversation. We absolutely need it, and it's one of our 5 pillars that underpins everything. And physically, we see it in Plymouth with the Coburg House, with all the partners, with Barclays Bank, with the skills launchpad there. I like to see not just behind the computer, we've got people out there that are easily accessible. And thank you, Sally, for all your commitment and the leadership of the council. And everyone here on this panel that's added flavour. And this will be an ongoing theme of what we do. Skills underpins everything. Was there anything else? So we'll move to the work programme. Jake, can you help me out here? It's all been in your papers. Again, we're on to Pillar 2, inclusive growth. I think the one that we discussed, because it's kind of, again, a little bit hot off the press and what's going through Cabinet that needs to go on that 15th of October is the Plan for Nature, because that will tie in with Cabinet decisions and scrutiny. Everyone happy with that? We've got a pretty structured approach on this panel. Thank you. Action log. There was a couple of things that came up, I think. I said, Jake, could you note?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've noted 4 actions from this panel, and I'll get them out later today.
Jamie, you are on my mind. Sorry. Councillor Bannerman. The we will get a date for Tinside next week. Hannah's away on leave. I will make sure that's done next week. It'll be a priority. We need to get that in the diary, absolutely.
Are we still anticipating that will be in September? It's a bit late for September now, isn't it?
We'll try and hit it so it's not too close, not too far, but it needs to. We need a date in the diary, absolutely. Thank you. That concludes everything. Have a lovely rest of the day, and thank you for your contributions. Thank you.